If you are new to this series, we have been going through every single national title claim in college football history for the FBS or highest level at the time it was claimed. At this time, we have covered all the teams that have claimed 5 titles or less and are moving on to the higher numbers. Please go back and watch those for me after this if you enjoy this sort of thing. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the college football national champion, with some formulas and short-lived systems in between attempting to better things. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Prior to 1965, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played, and then saw their champion lose their final game. If you go back a little further, the first attempt to straighten things out came in 1936 with the creation of the AP poll, and was often the most respected poll for many years. But even then, the early media had their biases and favorites due to what they were familiar with. If all the writers and voters only saw Notre Dame or Yale, they would have no way to compare it to what was going on down south or out west, and usually just sided with what they knew. Prior to the AP, we had a wild, lawless 67 years of college football where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of those teams didn't even claim national titles in this era until more modern polls went back and retroactively named them national champions. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP says you are the champ, but 11 others don't, I look deeper into the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
And of course, I view any titles won through the playoffs or BCS title game as automatically 100% legit from the start of the video, even if you disagree with the selection committee. And yes, I have also disagreed with them plenty of times. On the flip side, any that claim a separate title outside of those official parameters I view as complete bullshit, whether the selection committee screwed said team or not. History is history, and I respect that fact, even if I dislike that fact. For the purposes of this channel, I'm only going by what the school actually claims. I will do a series covering unclaimed titles later on. I have added a layer to my tiers and now broken them down into 5 sections. 100% legit, debatable but fair, I see your argument but no, complete bullshit, and introducing 1941 Alabama, which will be reserved for the most imaginary or dumb claims that exist. Pittsburgh, the historic powerhouse you never seem to hear about. And maybe that's because big cities never seem to have a huge college football fan base, for some reason. Maybe it's because somewhere like LA would much rather attend a Lakers game, and Pitt would rather see a Steelers game. I have even met a few people that went there, and while they were fans, they weren't overly diehard. Or maybe it's just because I live nowhere near them. I know the fans exist, and are out there somewhere. But aside from historical title claims, it hasn't been the best. The Panthers have only 1 outright conference title and 2 tied. Granted, they have only been in a conference since 1991, but hey, that's still 34 years at the time of recording. Even with more recent legends like Larry Fitzgerald, the team was only 9-4 at its peak. Older legends like Dan Marino and Tony Dorsett fared better, of course. All that aside, the team claims 9 national championships, which is bold and puts them in the ranks of Auburn and Ohio State. I, and most of you, did not accept all of Auburn's. Ohio State is the next video up, so we will see about that. But for now, let's check out the Panthers. Almost all of these claims are nearly 90 years old, so of course, take some of these for what they are. And just a heads up, this one is already not looking good at first glance. Before I start any of these, I want to welcome new viewers to a man named Parke H. Davis. In this series, Davis has been a complete pain in the ass, and the more I read into him, the worse it gets. This dude was someone who named national champions from 1869 to 1933. I've made many jokes in this series at his expense, and if I think of some more, I will add them as I go. Now here is, straight up, why this man was a fiend without any jokes, just the main details. Davis had a huge Eastern bias and disregarded anyone in the West or South. How big was the bias? As a Pennsylvania resident for most of his life and a Princeton grad, he picked an Eastern team as his champion or co-champion 57 out of 64 years. Here's another one for you. He once named the team he was coaching as co-national champions. And speaking of co-champions, this was also a problem for him. In those 64 years, he named a sole champion 31 times, meaning he had a split champion over 50% of the time, and these sometimes were split up even further and included 3 champions. And don't get me wrong, sometimes there are split champions, but Davis seemingly named a co-champion sometimes just to remind you that his loyalties were still intact, not because the other team deserved it. His selections therefore seem less like national championships than regional awards for the best team in the East and occasionally the Midwest. Now, why did I just tell you all of that? Because he was involved in 5 of these upcoming titles, so when I make a snarky remark, I won't have to repeat the backstory. And listen, just because he is involved does not mean I will be discrediting them all, just a precaution. 1915 is the first claim for Pittsburgh under legendary coach Pop Warner in his first season with the team. The Panthers went a perfect 8-0, posting 5 shutouts along the way. The team was named co-national champion by Parke H. Davis, and that is it. That's the only selector. Cornell also claims this one at 9-0, with many selectors picking them, and was Davis's other co-champion. In my Cornell video, I called the claim 100% legit. So how does Pitt compare? The Cornell schedule was tougher, but the Panthers wasn't necessarily weak. In the one common opponent, Pitt beat Penn 14-7 and Cornell beat them 24-9. Mathematically, you might figure Cornell is the better team, but for me, an 8-point difference in score doesn't create enough doubt against Pitt. The Panthers did nothing wrong, and while I don't really respect him, Davis did name them co-champions, so they do have a selector on their side, if only barely. I can't believe I'm about to side with Davis, but I can't realistically make an argument as to why Pitt is invalid in this claim. The schedule is fine, the wins are there, and they didn't just make it up. Due to the overwhelming majority favoring Cornell, I will put Pitt at debatable but fair. The very next season, Pitt claims another one in 1916. This team was given the nickname of the greatest 11 in the world, which is not very creative, but hey, it's 1916. I wouldn't expect it to be. It is also being a bit dramatic as they had a 1-point win over a 6-3-1 Navy team. Regardless of that, the team beat everyone else by a combined 235-6 to finish a perfect 8-0, and they would have probably been 9-0 had their opening game against Buffalo not been canceled. And I have no idea why it was canceled, but Buffalo sucked, so it would not have mattered. The Panthers were named champions by many selectors and co-champions by Davis. Army also claims 1916, and in their video I called that 100% legit. When we look at Pitt in comparison, they had a perceived similar strength of schedule. Yes, Army did play a YMCA, but they also beat Notre Dame by 20, who shut out everyone else they played, so that's probably a win versus a top 3 team had there been rankings. They also beat the aforementioned Navy team 15-7, so it would appear they were on equal footing with Pitt. The Panthers here are also 100% legit. It's a shame we didn't get a game between the two. 1918 was a weird year for college football. World War I and the Spanish flu pandemic saw teams have their schedules cut down to a half or a third of the normal, and in some cases, teams played only 1 to 2 games. Pitt was no exception. The Panthers began the year in the second week of November, beating Washington and Jefferson 34-0, followed by Penn 37-0, Georgia Tech 32-0, and Penn State 28-6. In the finale, Pitt lost to the Cleveland Naval Reserve 10-9. Now before you shit on Pitt, remember, these military-based teams during wartime could be comprised of star players from other schools, essentially making up an all-star roster of sorts. This was not always the case, but a possibility. For Cleveland Naval, this appears to be somewhat true, as several key players are listed and some are in the College Football Hall of Fame today. They played only other military camps aside from Pitt and went 5-1, losing only to a Chicago Naval Reserve who went undefeated, beating half the Big Ten. Okay, let's get out of that rabbit hole. At 4-1, the Panthers were named national champions by 2 selectors/mathematical formulas and co-champions by 1 other. Michigan is the only other team claiming this title at 5-0. Now initially, I was going to go a different direction, but we have to forgive the Panthers for losing to a super team by 1 point, especially when Michigan did not play one for us to compare. It's possible Michigan takes a loss if put in that situation, and when put up against Pitt's schedule, the Wolverines seem slightly weaker, but that's all speculation. My argument here is that Pitt's 1-point loss to a sort of all-star team is forgivable enough to put them even with Michigan. There's not going to be a 100% from this messy year from me, but I have Pitt as debatable but fair. and by that assessment, it won't be hard to predict my Michigan 1918 pick down the line. We now jump ahead to 1929, where former Pitt champion Jock Sutherland is now in his 6th season as head coach after Pop Warner crossed the country for Stanford. The Panthers went 9-0 through the regular season, but then lost to USC in the Rose Bowl 47-14. I will now repeat what I've said in other videos, so bear with me if you've heard it before. Just because you lose your bowl does not mean I will automatically discredit you. Up until the late 60s, it was viewed as an exhibition game with no effect on the championship. But we now have the beauty of having the entire picture in hindsight. If such a loss happens and nobody else claims the year, easy enough. If it happens and one other team claims it, but the loss doesn't make you seem weaker than that team, okay. But if this happens and more deserving teams are right there, what we actually have is a mistake. And yes, this logic could be applied to the BCS and college football playoffs a few times, but my difference in accepting those is because the entire nation pretty much adopted that the BCS and college football playoff was or is the ultimate goal. Okay, got it? So for now, we have Pitt at 9-1 with Parke H. Davis. The whole Parke H. Davis and nothing but the Parke H. Davis, so help me God, naming Pitt the champ. Now, that explanation I gave is hard to quantify here as we didn't yet have rankings, and we really didn't have bowl games to apply this logic to, as this was the only one of the season. But go ahead and keep it in mind if it comes up later. 9-0 Notre Dame also claims the national title, and almost every selector picked them as champions. They even beat that USC team that blasted Pitt in the Rose Bowl, even if it was only by 1 point. This one is not a struggle for me, but where exactly I put them is. Pitt is obviously not legit in 1929, but I'm gonna drop them even lower for a few reasons. The 33-point Rose Bowl loss speaks for itself. While not as respected as the soon-to-come AP poll, the Dickinson system did release some rankings and had Pitt at number 30. And then, of course, there's having Davis as the only selector, which is never a good thing. And even worse, he didn't name them national champion until 4 years later and then died. Not joking. It was this asshole's dying wish to express his bias for the East one last time. 1929 Pitt, this claim is at least complete bullshit, but I am actually putting this claim in the 1941 Alabama tier, which may not be the fairest thing I have ever done, but hey, we all know it isn't legit, so let's just hope I at least made some of you smile with my theatrics. The next claim comes a few years later in 1931. The Panthers certainly started hot, beating Miami of Ohio, Iowa, West Virginia, and Western Reserve by a combined total of 147-0 to start out 4-0. In Game 5, however, the team lost 25-12 on the road to Notre Dame. From there, Pitt won out, finishing 8-1. This team is named co-national champion only by Parke H. Davis, and that is all. Just co-champion by the old PhD, and don't let those initials fool you. USC also claims this one at 10-1, which included a Rose Bowl win. The Trojans were named champs by a huge majority of selectors. That Notre Dame team who beat Pitt were defeated by USC 16-14 about a month later also. By all accounts, Southern Cal had a much tougher schedule, and it included 2 more games. Now I know that's hard to judge without official rankings, but the overwhelming majority picking USC makes me believe that it was probably more than just a popularity contest. I am going to have to take their word for it. But in this case, I do have some sympathy for Pitt, a 1-loss resume versus another 1-loss resume, and that one loss to Notre Dame went USC's way by only 2 points. So realistically, the teams were probably near a similar caliber. But I don't respect the Davis bias at all, and without it, Pitt has no argument. I call this claim complete bullshit, and maybe that's generous, but I can see a very faint argument, which isn't a strong one, but enough to keep them out of 41 Bama territory. The 6th claim comes from 1934, and strap in for this one because, fair warning, I'm going to lose my cool if I ever had any. If you are one of the few who are offended by language, maybe skip this one. The Panthers started out 3-0, but lost Game 4 to Minnesota 13-7. From there, they won out convincingly enough to finish 8-1. They were named national champions by only Parke H. Davis. Davis died in June of that year. He never saw this fucking team play. He was dead 3 months before the first game. Yes, there is an explanation to this. His successor, Walter Oakson, continued to name champions on his behalf, even extending to 1935 as well for some reason. I did not say it was a good explanation. He even had a new guide printed up until 1936, adding some of these split champions we see over the years. His dying wish was to make his legacy as complicated and infuriating as possible. I'll just say it, I hate this piece of shit. As someone who loves college football and studying its history, Davis is my most hated figure in it. If that chode is ever considered for the Hall of Fame, I am going to Atlanta and protesting it. But luckily that isn't likely, as everyone from his era that was deserving has already been included. Fuck you, Parke. Anyway, where were we? Ah yes, 1934. Alabama and Minnesota also claimed this title. I haven't yet covered Alabama, but I won't need to compare them in order to make my point. I recently did the Minnesota video and found that claim to be 100%. In case you forgot already, Minnesota and Pitt played each other, and despite it being a one-score game, the result is final. The Gophers won. Davis's ghost could not let the team who beat Pitt be his pick over Pitt. Make that make sense. And he completely ignored 10-0 Alabama, which is fair because he was fucking dead and didn't see any of their games. You already know that this pick belongs in the 1941 Alabama tier. And Pitt, this rant isn't all on Parke H deceased. The program should have some integrity and leave this unclaimed. We would all respect you for it. Ah, God, I need a drink.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the title?
We now skip ahead 2 years to 1936, and for the first time in this video, we have an AP poll with rankings and all. Pitt dominated through 3 games, beating Ohio Wesleyan 53-0, West Virginia 34-0, and Ohio State 6-0. In the next game, Duquesne brought them down 7-0. The Panthers rebounded with a 26-0 win over number 7 Notre Dame before tying number 5 Fordham 0-0. The team finished strong with a win over number 6 Nebraska 19-6 and capped it all with a 21-0 Rose Bowl win over number 5 Washington to finish 8-1-1 ranked number 3. They were named national champions by 3 selectors. Granted, one of those selectors happened in 1982. Only one other team claims this one, and that is Minnesota. In the Gophers video, I called the claim 100% legit, and it was the final year of their famous three-peat. For more info on them, watch that video please. But here's the quick rundown. Their only loss was to number 3 Northwestern, 6-0, and they were named AP National Champions along with 9 other selectors. So back to Pitt. On the one hand, they beat 3 ranked teams. On the other hand, they lost to an unranked team and tied another ranked team. To help me place this claim, I went a little deeper. Duquesne, the team they lost to, went on to finish 8-2 as Orange Bowl champions. Not bad. Fordham, their tie, went on to finish 5-1-2, but that one loss for them was to NYU. New York was not very good, having lost one of their games 60-0 to an Ohio State team that Pitt beat. I think that just complicates things further. Minnesota has the support of almost everyone this season as their champion. They also have the one loss versus a loss and a tie. I wrestled with where to put them for a bit, but finally came to a conclusion. Initially, I wanted to say it was a good argument, but no, but I actually come to the conclusion that the argument is, in fact, just good enough. I cannot ignore 4 ranked games versus 2, especially when all of them were in the top 10. And applying my bowl logic from the previous explanation, that 21-0 Rose Bowl win over number 5 Washington should get them some extra credit from our viewpoint in modern day. I'm ultimately calling this one debatable but fair. If you wanted to say no, however, I'm not sure I disagree with that viewpoint either. This really belongs in between things, as I see your argument and I'm still not sure. But I'm not officially making that a tier. The next year in 1937, we see claim number 8. After starting the year 3-0-1, Pitt had climbed to a number 3 ranking despite tying Fordham 0-0. The team went on to beat number 21 Wisconsin 21-0, number 12 Notre Dame 21-6, number 11 Nebraska 13-7, and number 18 Duke 10-0 to finish the season 9-0-1. The Panthers were named AP Poll National Champion as well as most other selectors. Cal also claims this title at 10-0-1. In their video, I call the Bears 100% legit with a respectable tie with Washington. Well, Pitt's tie with Fordham is plenty respectable too. Both had solid schedules, and this is just a case of 2 great teams that did not cross paths. Pitt is also 100% legit here. This would also be the last claimed title under Coach Sutherland, as he left the following season after 15 years. We now jump ahead 4 decades for our final claim, under the guidance of 4th-year head coach Johnny Majors. Yes, the Tennessee legendary player and coach. He had been average in his first 3 seasons and, honestly, kind of bad prior to that point at Iowa State. But in 1976, he had Tony Dorsett. The Panthers began at number 9 and beat number 11 Notre Dame 31-10 in Game 1. From there, they kept winning but did not play another ranked team until the regular season finale with a 24-7 showing over number 16 Penn State. The team entered the Sugar Bowl ranked number 1 to play number 5 Georgia. Pitt won that game with ease 27-3 to finish 12-0 and consensus national champion. This is easily the most legit title that Pitt claims, and it doesn't hurt that it comes from the modern era too, making it probably the most respected. By my count, I have Pitt as a 6-time champion, and one of those is very debatable. But that is certainly not 9 any way you look at it. For what it's worth, they leave 8 unclaimed, and I will certainly look at those deeper in an upcoming series. Lately in this series, I've been ending with my thoughts on if I think the team in question will be adding to the trophy case anytime soon, like within the next 5 to 10 years. Absolutely not. This team is the definition of inconsistent, and I don't make a habit of betting on wild cards. The Panthers went 6-5 in 2020 to 11-3 in 2021 and back to 3-9 by 2023. Pitt is all over the damn place. Though it is not a complete indicator of success, the team got the number 44 recruiting class for 2026 according to 24/7 Sports, and that is below the likes of Rutgers, Wake Forest, and Mississippi State. Of course, with these guys and their bipolar record bouncing every few years, you could see them randomly end up in the playoffs in 2029. But even if it did come to that, there is no way I can see them winning the whole thing. In an ACC where the likes of Miami, Florida State, and Clemson will likely remain near the top or return to the top in some cases, a Pitt team will really need to bring a loaded team to prove me wrong, especially with teams like Georgia Tech, Duke, SMU, and Louisville all headed upwards and generally regarded in a better light as of lately. Sorry, Pitt, it's nothing personal. It's just been 50 years, and you don't seem all that close to climbing that mountain again yet. And there we go. If you feel I was unfair or missed a piece of info, go ahead and make your case in the comments. Please go check out the other videos in this series. There is a playlist for them, and we are in the final stretch. And remember, this is just one guy on YouTube who did some research and gave an opinion. I'm sure I won't change any fan base's opinion on the titles they choose to boast about, and certain fan bases have made that pretty clear thus far. This has been College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me next time.